Mike.
Hi, Al. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing just fine.
Good. I'm glad to touch base with you. I know you're very busy. For anyone who enjoys fishing, the name Al Lindner is familiar. Al's dedication, vision, and innovations in the world of fishing have made him one of the industry's most respected leaders. We're happy to have him on Mike Tomano's Wild and Free. Welcome to the show, Al.
Hey, Mike, it's a real pleasure to be here. We've been trying to do this off and on for a period of time. It finally connected, man.
Well, you know, the spring and summer kick in, and it's hard to find Al Lindner, isn't it?
Well, most of the time, if the weather's right, which has been a little bit questionable this spring, I'm out doing some kind of television show someplace. My busy season, filming season starts in the middle of April and goes to about the beginning of November. In that period of time, I got to do 26 segments. So when the weather says go, fish are biting, the boat is hooked up, and I live by the seat of my pants. I wake up one morning and say, let's go here, and I'm going for 3 or 4 days and wander back.
Well, you're an industry unto yourself. We're going to talk about Lindner Media Productions, also your publications and all the stuff you do and how you run a business so widespread. I grew up in a household with a father who loved to fish every chance he got. And every time we watched Al Lindner on television, my dad would hit me and say, hey, he'd hit my arm and say, watch Al. He knows what he's talking about. It must be rewarding to see your expertise span generations.
Well, I guess if you were to ask me, what would you like to be remembered for the most? And I really believe that I'd have to answer it by saying that I had a really positive impact on the lives, brought some joy and happiness and excitement and focus and direction on a number of people's lives that really enjoyed the sport of fishing. And many of them, given the opportunity, if they feel led to make a living in the industry in some way, whether it's as a professional angler or people like you and me that tend to be in the communication end of our industry, whatever they feel led to, I hope I can be an inspiration to them and have been. And to me, that's exciting.
You were one of the first outdoor television personalities. Tell us about the early days of producing a fishing TV show.
Well, we've been in the game for like 40 years, I guess, something like that. And it don't seem like it, Mike. It's been like a whirlwind.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I still, of all of the things that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the sport fishing industry through the years, the different projects we've been involved in, the fishing television show business is probably the most enjoyable to me.
Oh, yeah.
And some years ago, I know a lot of your listeners know this, some of them don't, but when we sold In Fisherman some years ago, I had a non-compete for a period of time. And during that time period, my wife asked me one day, she said, what are you going to do with your life now? Financially, you're in great shape. Your passion was what you've done for the past 25 years. She said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said to her, I still like doing television. Mm-hmm. I like doing television shows. It's one of the most enjoyable parts of my career. She said, why don't you keep doing it then? Because it isn't like work. So,
right.
She just kind of said, let's get back in the game again, and we did.
Right, and In Fisherman magazine, which was always the go-to source for years for people who wanted to, as the slogan said, catch more and bigger fish. That was pretty much the way to go.
Well, that was the direction. That was the purpose of the company. That's who we were at that point. That was our focus. And if you had a simple mission statement, I guess that was
That's it.
That's what we were all about.
Right.
And so the thinking process and everything we ever did. Actually, my entire career, I guess, if you had to sum it up, it was built on a simple premise of helping people find and catch more fish. If they do that, they have a lot more fun and enjoy the sport more, go out more often. That would be a goal that I've aspired to for 40 years. And its simplicity, that's probably the key to the success of everything I've ever done. Every endeavor.
Let's go back to your childhood when you first caught the fishing bug. Tell us about it.
Well, I don't remember the first time, but I can tell you what my parents told me.
Okay. Oh, that early. Okay.
Since I was about, they said about 4 years old. And fishing was an unbelievable passion to me. My grandparents had a place in Hayward, Wisconsin, on Grindstone Lake. And I would spend all my summer vacations with my grandmother. And my parents would come up on the weekends, and relatives would come up. They'd take their vacation, meet me. But all my summertime time was spent up there. And they said from the time you were about 4, it was noticeable that fishing was almost an obsession with you. I mean, morning till night, you're running around the shore. Fishing occupied your entire being. And that really never changed throughout my life. And ironically, I can tell you, when I think back now, when I was somewhere around 12 years old, to the best that I can, May 11, 12, 13, somewhere right in there, that I made a conscious decision in my mind at that point that I'm going to make my living fishing. That was the thing. I can remember distinctly saying that. I told it to my parents and again, thank God my mother never said to me, well, that's, chat from a silly 12-year-old. That isn't going to happen. How do you make a living in a fishing business? You got to go get a real job. She's seen, and so did my brother and my father, that there was something there that wasn't, way above normal. So they kind of encouraged it at that. I mean, they bought me the best fishing tackle. They never said this is silly. I fished really early tournaments. I had the best equipment, subscribed to all the fishing magazines, birthday, Christmas, anything. It would be new lures, the hottest lures, the best fishing line, the newest reels. They encouraged that.
Right.
And that passion is still there. It's just I just thank the Lord that I never got burned out.
Right.
It's still exciting, man.
It definitely is, and it shows. Your energy is definitely contagious when one watches your programs. Both Babe Winkleman and Spence Petros have been on this program, and they've cited the Lindy rig as the greatest innovation they could think of off the top of their heads. Can you explain the Lindy rig and its inception to our listeners?
This is an interesting story. When we moved to the Brainerd Lakes area, meaning it was my brother and his family and I got out of the service, and we were looking for a place to call home. And we looked through Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, settled on the Brainerd Lakes area because of all of the different variety of water and species of fish in a very short driving distance. And we started a guide service. And I don't quite remember even why my brother called it Lindy's Guide Service. But he created a logo with a little eagle, and it was called Lindy Guide Service. We set up these posters and put them all around resorts and bait shops all around the Brainerd area. And one of the things that he had learned over the years, and we had picked up on fishing, was the simplicity of dragging an egg sinker with a snell and a night crawler along on the bottom of the lake. And we learned this when we were growing up on a chain of lakes in the Chicago area in southern Wisconsin, that if you did this, you always got bites. You always caught some kind of fish. But there was a problem with this. When we get into rocks, we would constantly end up getting snagged. So he came up with this silly little walking chute design that became known as the Lindy Walking Sinker. And he made plaster molds, and we would pour a whole bunch of them in a basement of his house in the wintertime for our guiding trips, simply because it slid through the rocks easy, and it just made your fishing experience a lot easier. So when we're out on the water taking people fishing, we would rig their rods with the simple slip sinker, 24 to 36 inch snell, a little hook or a big hook if it was a minnow or a night crawler, and then grew to leeches after that. But the sinker was the hinge pin on everything. And then we'd come into Nisswa Bait and Tackle, which was one of the places, high profile place that we guided out of. And he would take pictures of all these fish and stick them in a local newspaper. Well, eventually people would ask him, what did you catch your fish on? And these people would automatically say, Lindy's rig. And we would, you'd get done with your guide trip, and you'd leave the hook, line, and sinker on their rod, whatever it was, and they'd go away. So they just termed it Lindy's rig, nicknaming it after the guide service. So it caught on like that. And then pretty soon, a wholesaler in St. Cloud, Minnesota, kept hearing people call. They'd look at these pictures and say, what's a Lindy's rig? So he called us. He says, why don't you pour some of these sinkers, make some of them, stick them in a bag, and we could sell them. You could make some pocket change, go pay for your gas for a season or something. So we started to package these things up in a winter. In the first year, it was like you sold 800. Then it went to 8,000, then 80,000, then 8 million. And now it's off the charts. I don't know how many it was sold over the years, but that's the history of the birth of the Lindy rig.
Isn't that something?
It's an amazing story.
It's going to pay for your gas money, right? I think it has, hasn't it?
It's amazing how little things like that impact your life and happen along life's journeys.
Well,
and most people never realize. It's always interesting to me to see how things work behind the scenes to develop into what is considered a success story by many.
Yeah, well, Lindy tackled way back in 1973. In Fisherman was another creative force that you were involved in. From tackle to being a spokesperson to producing some of the greatest DVDs and television shows in the outdoor industry. Let's go back to, with all the people that you've taught and mentored in the world of fishing, what's the most common mistake that you see anglers make?
Complicating fishing. And making it harder than it really is, and eliminating the common sense factor. When we put together In Fisherman, we came out with that handbook, and it talked about lakes and environments and the FLP system, standing for Fish Location Presentation, and there was a litany of things that came under each heading that truly, if you were to pursue the sport, was a constant learning curve, which determined the end result, and it still is a fact today. But we put it into an informative format and actually built the entire In Fisherman Communications network on that simple truth. But fishing never really is, none of it is truly hard. I don't care if it's methods like spoon plugging to live bait rigging to the simplicity of drop shotting to swim baiting for bass. None of this stuff is really, really hard once you understand some of the simple foundations of fishing, such as fish use structure. They like cover. Forage is a driving factor. Some of these simple common sense things that anybody that spends a little bit of time fishing today quickly grasps. Yeah. But all of these little presentations, if anything, I think people tend to complicate it. Not that there isn't a lot of things to do, but the more time you spend on water and experience a success with any kind of fish, the quicker the process of how your mind interprets all this stuff comes together.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm making that clear or not, Mike, but I'm trying to say that fishing is not a really difficult thing. Anybody can learn to do it in a short period of time today if you have the passion, the desire to do it. The vehicles are there with internet, magazine, television, DVDs. You can accelerate what took many of us years and years and years to learn. In a couple of years' time, you can be a very proficient angler, and given time and passion. And that naturally costs a little bit of money to do it. The right tools of the trade to have good fishable equipment and to get a decent boat and rig it right in that. If you really want to play the game, it costs a few bucks. There's no question. You don't need a $50,000 boat to do it, but you do need a boat that's rigged out right for the kind of water you fish on. In a lot of cases, that might be a John boat with a 10 horsepower rigged with a 12-volt trolling motor on the back and a depth finder.
Right.
If you're a river or small water fisherman. But knowing where you fish, what you want to fish for, and then rigging out right, these are all parts of the success formula, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, getting out as often as you can, it'll become second nature. I know there's two things that I always look for in any lake: overhangs and drop-offs. Those are the two things that I always have success. Somehow I'm going to catch a fish there.
Well, the first major drop-off in any body of water or ledge, it makes no difference if it's a 5 to 10 foot roll or a 10 to 20 foot roll or a 20 to 60 foot a drop. Those edges, creek channels, weed lines, major drop-offs in any body of water are the main magnet that all fish use, particularly warm water fish, all year long. There is always some fish on a major break line. Granted, there is big fish in some bodies of water that suspend if there's a lot of open water forage. We are becoming more and more familiar and successful in catching those open water fish than ever before. There is always some fish like largemouth bass that on some environments live in the shallow water slop that are home bodies.
Right.
Some of those fish are there, but by and large, if you revolve, everything starts on the first major drop-off and either goes out or in and sometimes up. And if you understand that simple principle that everything is governed off of that first break line, you will always catch some fish.
Al Lindner sharing his time with us on Mike Tomano's Wild and Free. You've been able to fish in some of the greatest locations on the planet. You've fished all over the world. What are some of your favorite locations to fish?
For me, if I had to pick my absolute favorite lake in the entire world, I guess it would have to be Lake of the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on the Minnesota-Ontario border. And the reason I would say Lake of the Woods, first of all, by definition, I'm sure you may have heard Spence Petro's comment on that, along with Babe and a host of other people in our fishing industry. It truly is a unique body of water. For every species of fish, it's got, depending on the different basins that you're in, you've got lake trout, you've got huge schools of crappies, you've got largemouth bass, you've got incredible smallmouth fishing. The walleye fishing is off the charts in the last 10 years. Without a doubt, it's the best musky water in the entire world, and it's got big northern pike in key sections. Throw in some perch if you like big jumbo perch to go on top of that, and along with whitefish or tulipy if you like to catch those to smoke them. The lake is made up of numerous different basins that look like all and function like all separate lakes, from crystal clear in Whitefish Bay to Clearwater Bay to pea green algae in the northwest angle, where you can't see 6 inches into the water. But each basin has a huge amount of catchable fish in itself. And the lake is, it's like about 1 million acres of water with 14,000 islands. I can guarantee you'll never get bored fishing it, and that's what I like about it. The lake is, some bodies of water you could get burned out fast because they're really easy to read. Yeah, you go out there, it's summertime, there's 2 spots in the whole lake. In 2 hours, you fished everything efficiently and caught the biters. Lake of the Woods is never like that. It is an ongoing, you will never know all about it, and you just can't get bored on a fishery with the multi-species aspect. You spend your lifetime there doing something different every single day.
Your favorite fish to chase?
Smallmouth bass, always has been.
Always has been.
I love them. And if I had to go second, Mike, the second would be a close tie between largemouth and walleye. I like both of those. Then I would go for the third. I would have to go to muskie.
Yeah. Walleye was, the first time I fished walleye, I was probably 10 years old. It was at the Petenwell Flowage in Wisconsin. And it's a different fish. They do this thing where they kind of suck the bait in, and they don't really take the bait. You really have to time your hook set.
Oh, yeah, they're not aggressive like a northern pike or a muskie or a smallmouth, or inhale and draw a bait at distance like a largemouth bass tends to. It's a much more finicky. Even when walleyes are active, they're not real active. Okay?
Right.
It's the nature of the fish.
Yeah.
They're not a kamikaze fish even on the best of days.
Right.
The fish is always a finesse fish. I don't care how you're fishing them. Finesse seems to be a factor to catch them, and that's just part of their basic nature.
Yeah.
But I like the challenge of them.
Very challenging,
Probably a big part of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people consider them very difficult to catch overall. And you get a good understanding of the fish in their environment. You can always poke some. But to me, the biggest draw with walleyes, besides they're pretty darn good to eat, is the challenging part of it. Fish like largemouth are a lot easier to catch, a little more cooperative, a little more abundant throughout the day. Fish like smallmouth are very aggressive. They're not nowhere near impacted by frontal conditions and boat traffic and things like that, where walleyes are impacted by everything. Light, wind, boat traffic, fishing pressure.
Oh, yeah.
So they make the fish a little more challenging than some of the other species.
What are your favorite fish for the table?
Probably crappie.
Yeah,
crappie and perch. I'd have to put crappie first, perch second.
Yeah, and then probably walleye.
Yeah, walleye, of the bigger of what we would term game fish, then walleye would come into play for sure.
Yeah. So now, when you're getting up to go to work, this is always intriguing to me. Lindner Media Productions, you oversee a huge impacting conglomerate. Run us through the day in the life of Lindner Media.
Well, usually on Mondays like today it kicks off our week to sometimes 2 weeks if I got to do a lot of travel. We have a quick management meeting, kind of go an update of where we're at television-wise, what do we have to shoot yet, Who's producing what crews are going where, because we do some other work besides the show. We do a lot of commercial shoots. To give you an example, right now we're doing working on a half-hour infomercial for Lund Boats that'll be playing next spring in spot buys. And so we're kind of getting shooters around different times, coordinating that. We're doing 3 different commercials. 30-second commercials right now. So every Monday, who's going what, where, what do we have to shoot out, what's your schedule this week? You try to fit in some personal things. Jimmy still's got kids at home, so he's got big competitive sports with his young kids, so sometimes he's got a game that he's got to go to. That means I'll jump off and take off for 3 days because he can't get away Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'll go do this, you do this muskie show. So we're tweaking on every Monday, and then the rest of the week, or sometimes if it takes a long, prolonged trip, like I just came off of, almost the month of July for me was a non-stop. I'll backtrack a little bit. I started off, I had a walleye tournament, a Lund Mania tournament, 4th of July weekend in Otter Tail Lake. I pre-fished for that. That got done. We had a Legends tournament in Minnesota. Ron Shera's organization shot this thing. And that was on Gull Lake here, so you pre-fished. I immediately came back from that walleye tournament, went pre-fished for that tournament. Then we had 3 days of that event on Gull. I left immediately after that for the ICAST show in Las Vegas, flew back from the ICAST, which is an industry show, our main industry show. I immediately flew back from there and got back 6 in the evening, hooked up the boat on a Thursday, took off to a Canadian Bass Championship in Canada, which I fished for 16 years. It's the most competitive bass tournament in the upper Midwest. And it's a team tournament. I fished with my son on that, so we were up there for 9 days. I just got back last week from that fished 2 days with some vets that are back from Afghanistan. And that kind of gave you my month of July. Without a break.
Well, there you are. The angling educator, Al Lindner. It's great to have you with us. And so what's next for you?
Well, as soon as I hang up this phone, I'm going in with a powwow with Jimmy and Danny, and we're kind of regrouping who's going to be going where, what for the next week or two, checking out on a few bites. I know we got a few walleye pieces to do yet. He's got to do a muskie piece for sure, and I'm getting inkling he may be going to Lake of the Woods because I had a call that the bite is unbelievable. It's off the charts.
Is that right?
Up there now, so I got a feeling he's chomping at the bit to hook up his boat and go up there. And the main emphasis right now is filming. That's the heart. And we're about 60% done for the season. And I'm looking at my shoot sheet right now. We kind of know what we're shooting to a plan. We shoot to a plan. So I've got a number of shows to shoot to fit the season. You got spring, summer, fall. We naturally got our winter stuff done. And then we know the subject matter. We mix it to get some DVDs done and everything. So we shoot to a plan, and now it's just how do you execute the plan. Sometimes you got to tweak it. Most of the time it works out. Sometimes you miss an opportunity, scratch it, regroup, push the subject matter into another show. Yeah,
well, and there's probably often times when all the planning in the world doesn't save you from weather or fish not biting.
No, you get into the biggest factor is weather because it impacts if the fish are biting or not usually,
right.
Or the activity level. So you're always dealing with local weather and water conditions. That's the biggest challenge you got. And in a season, the best laid plans of men. You get there, you want to do a show a certain way. You need to catch them on a certain new bait for one of your marketing partners or a story you want to tell where you want to try, tie in something that they need that's brand new for the next season. Mm-hmm. And you have to get it done. You plan to go out there and it just don't work. And sometimes in a season we'll do this like 2 times. It'll never come together. And the third time it rolls like boom, boom, boom. I'll tell you, when you see the shows, when you see them in its entirety, and most of the time they're done very quick, very easily. A part of the day, as you see it, it rolls together incredibly, incredibly smooth. However, in some cases, I might have made 2 trips out there that were failed before it went the way you wanted it to work.
That's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
Al Lindner, continued success. I want to just tell you, you've been an inspiration to me for most of my life. You've really helped me in my fishing addiction. So I want to thank you for that, and I wish you continued success in all you do, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike, and look forward to chatting with you again. Hey, all you people out there, the middle of the season, there's some great fishing opportunities going on right now close to where you're sitting at. Go and enjoy them, man.